All right, it's time to talk basketball. I'm Jose Salviati, editor at thepeachbasket.net. He's Steve Purciello, a longtime educator, vice principal, high school basketball coach, and athletic director. And this is the Shot Clock Pod, the best 24 minutes of NBA random thoughts online anywhere. This podcast was born out of the content in Steve's 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts articles, which he publishes weekly. Steve and I have exactly 24 minutes to discuss what's on his mind around the NBA. Today, we'll discuss his latest 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts article, where he shares his thoughts on a top 75 NBA player, probably a lock for the Hall of Fame, and a top NBA coach. And then gives his thoughts on the remaining 5 Eastern Conference teams we've yet to cover. I think they're all Eastern Conference. I didn't even notice, actually. But we'll talk about the last 5 teams for sure as the NBA preseason has officially tipped off. Let's talk basketball. Steve, are you ready?
Ready.
Let's go. I'm going to start the clock, and we're off. All right. Anthony Davis. We start with AD. Haven't talked about him in a while. Well, I haven't talked about any particular player in a while, but AD is an interesting topic right now. He's in the news because he's a top 75 player, a lock for the Hall of Fame, I would think. He's also 15 pounds heavier at the start of this training camp than he was at last year's training camp. Why is that a big deal? Why are people blowing up about this?
We can name a bunch of things. I'll start with this. How does it look for his teammates? You have a team, if you have Kyrie Irving healthy, you have a shot at the whole thing. You've got a good team. If the Kyrie Irving we know comes back and plays like he always does. He comes in 15 pounds or 20 pounds, whatever it is over. You've got a rookie there who's a pretty good player, Cooper Flagg. What's he realizing? What's he seeing? It's all about the money.
Yeah.
It's not about the game. And then we get to Anthony Davis himself. How professional is that? How professional. You just got traded for a great player. Do you want to show that you're good and you were worthy of being traded for that player? He doesn't. And then he offers a weak excuse that he loses weight during the season, so he figured he'd come in bigger and all that stuff. That's weak. Yeah. It's real weak. And the other piece, there's so many pieces to this. He's got bad feet. He's got an Achilles problem and things like that. You tell me 15 more pounds is great to carry around. It's just not good. It just doesn't speak well of him. And then the other thing too, the average fan sees that. Now, the NBA is maligned by a lot of people, and they like college basketball and all that good stuff. When they see a guy like this, they just laugh. And it just makes the NBA look bad. Don't forget, this is guaranteed money. Davis, everything he has to do is stay alive. And he's going to get paid. If they cut him, they do anything. So this money will be given to him. And when you give somebody that much money, which is $50 million, I don't know his exact salary, but when you give him, it's almost implied that you expect the best out of that person. He's made a joke of the whole thing, and it's wrong. It's wrong on so many levels.
Yeah. When I first read about it, I didn't give it much weight because I feel like I gained that much weight over Thanksgiving. It just doesn't seem like a lot to me. But then you're right. This sends a bad message to his teammates. You expected somebody who has a team that is legitimately, when healthy, has a shot to make some noise, come in motivated, come in excited to be there. I know that this was a point of contention with Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant, right? It's the exact same thing. And we're not saying and not suggesting, and I haven't heard that any of his teammates are having a problem with Anthony Davis. But that's exactly why Kobe and Shaq, at least one of the reasons Kobe and Shaq didn't get along. So, yeah, overall, just not a good look for Anthony Davis.
Look at the opposite here. He was traded for a guy. Why did they trade Luka, supposedly?
That's a good point.
And now you get this guy
who that's wild.
We're done with those problems.
Right.
He comes in and he pulls a Luka. And Luka, by the same token, has spent the summer getting himself in the best shape possible. And it's crazy. But again, to me, it tarnishes Anthony Davis. I thought how good a player defensively. He's got a great, within 15 feet, he can shoot the eyes out. He can do so much, a good rebounder. To me, it
Yep.
tarnishes them. And to me, top 75, those 75 players are players that took the game seriously and wanted to play. I don't know if I can say that about him. So if he's top 75, I don't agree.
Okay. Okay. What major black eye really tarnishes his legacy, it seems, all over 15 pounds. Something that was easily fixable, but tough start to the season for AD and the Mavericks. So let's see how things play out. Maybe it wasn't AD and Luca. Maybe the problem is something going on in Dallas. I don't know. I didn't draw that line like you did. That's why they traded Luca. Then they bring in AD and he's 15 pounds heavier. That's wild. That's interesting. Let's see how it plays out. Let's stay in the West. As a matter of fact, this whole entire show is about the West. I don't know. I was way off with the East. We're talking the Western Conference. 5 championships as a player, 4 as a coach. This is another all-time great. But despite those accolades, is the coaching career of the Warrior Steve Kerr over, at least in San Francisco? You wrote about it. What's going on?
It's really interesting. He's got another year in his contract this year. This is it.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you're Golden State, you want to keep him. So you're going to try to sign him. He's saying, I'll make decisions at the end of the year and all those things. So you almost wonder, he's pulling a Phil Jackson. And by that, I mean, he's there while the getting's good. But now it might not be as good. He's out, or he's thinking about getting out. And to me, that's not a great thing. And it's not a great look. Maybe he doesn't like the coach. I don't know. He took a lot of beating from the Olympics with Tatum and those things. And maybe he's had
Right.
it. Maybe, who knows? I'm sure he's got plenty of money. That could be it. But really, it makes you think about it. Okay, you were there for the good times, and they had some great teams. Now things might not be as good in a year because, again, Curry will be 38 next year and Jimmy Butler at 36, 37, whatever. And Draymond's got to be up there also. At some point, their skills are going to be diminishing. So maybe it's time to get out while the getting's good. And it's just not a good look. It really isn't. He's an all-time great. And he's going to walk away possibly. And you would think, by the way, last piece on that, Curry's got one more year in his contract after this year. I think he would align it with Curry and walk away if he's going to
Right.
walk away with Curry. So it just doesn't, it doesn't smell good. And I hope that at some point, maybe he sticks around.
Yeah, I don't see him leaving the game, but it does seem like the writing's on the wall, potentially in San Francisco. At the end of the day, it's probably his call. We'll see how it plays out. I think the Warriors might be a sleeper team. I don't think they're not a champ. They don't have championship potential, but I think they'll be pretty good this year. But I do have to call out one thing. Phil Jackson, right, did take over the Knicks, didn't he? That was not a good team when he took them
As
over.
the GM. And he had
Okay.
nothing to lose by doing that because if the Knicks get better, he's a genius. And if the Knicks
Got it.
don't get better, what do you expect? So this wasn't as a coach. And you don't want to, if I think about great coaches, naturally Jackson and Auerbach and those people, Jackson took great teams. He had the best player in the world, Michael Jordan. He had a pretty good one in Kobe. He did that. Red Auerbach did it with Bill Russell. And he was great, but he did it with
Yeah.
you like to see coaches that are able to coach in different situations with different groups and continue
Right.
to win. And Jackson was in a different situation, but he got the best players on his team.
Yeah.
And so it tarnishes things. For Kerr, maybe he is going to move on. And maybe we'll find out how good he is if he can win titles with another group of players.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. It'll be interesting to see how things play out. We'll see what's in the future for Steve Kerr. Let's talk some NBA teams. We covered all of them. You did in your articles. We got 5 left. They're all Western Conference teams. Let's talk about each of them. First off, in the tough Western Conference, we're going to discuss the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, for my money, John Morant is as exciting an NBA player as there is in the NBA. Watching him with the ball, with the head of steam going to the hoop, you just don't know what he's going to do. He's got elements of Dominique Wilkins to me, right? Because he is a human highlight film. But is he good enough? Dominique never was to take a team all the way to the finals. Is John Morant good enough to make any real noise in the playoffs? Is a John Morant-led team good enough? What do you think?
What's the most the best part of the ability a player can have? I ask you. Availability. I gave you the answer.
Oh, okay. I was not going to say that, so thank you
What
for
you think
providing
the
it.
odds are that Ja will
Yeah,
play
yeah. Right,
65
right, right.
games this year?
Yeah, yeah.
So now he's still got value in the NBA.
Sure.
You've got to look at that. Now, I know the fans would be upset, and I understand all of it. And the object is to sell tickets. And Memphis isn't one of the hot markets in the NBA, and they're reluctant to spend a lot of money. That's why they traded Desmond Bain and they gave Jaren Jackson a lot more money. And obviously, they're not going to be as good without Desmond Bain.
Yeah.
So, with all that being said, you're going to put yourself in that play in every year Chicago Bull type situation. I don't know if that's a good thing. So
Right.
now you need to make some decisions. One of them might be if we're going to keep Ja, odds are he's going to play less games every year. In a year, what's his value? And in two, and so on and so forth. So there's some decisions that have to be made. They do have a decent group around him. Jaren Jackson can play, and
Yeah.
he's one of those guys that's one of the least known good players in the NBA. And they just took care of him. They paid him pretty good. They have a Zach Edey, who is a pretty good. He's got a future. Would be the best
Sure.
way. They did get Caldwell Pope in the trade for Desmond Bain, he's aging, but he's still a decent player. And they got
Yeah.
Jalen Wells, a good rookie. So they got a couple pieces to build from. Again, that's not nearly good enough, especially in the West, to get any
Right.
further than play-in team. What exactly? And if Ja plays 50 games, I don't even know if there'll be a play-in. So
Yeah.
that's the situation. And by the way, Ja is an exciting player, but because he's so exciting and is in the air and can do so
Yeah.
many things, that's why he gets hurt that often. I hope he doesn't get hurt, but it's just he's the type of player that just the way he plays leads to injury.
Yep. Undeniable. Still only 26 years old, which blows my mind. It is, in my mind's eye, it's prove it time for John Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies. Let's see if this is the year. Another team that has to prove it, and it took an interesting step a few years ago, about 3 years ago now, the Utah Jazz rather, blew up a good team, right? When they traded away Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, you mentioned this. And when you do that, when you blow up a team, you expect a couple of rough years, right? Just that's how it goes. But you expect a lot of picks, and then 2, 3 years, 4 years down the road, you expect to be competitive again. Here we are, 3 years later, the Jazz are not. What the rebuild has been a bust. Why? What went wrong in Utah?
I don't. And Danny Ainge did such a great job with Boston with
Yeah.
the Garnett trade, and now his son has taken over, and Ainge has like moved up higher, whatever. But I try to figure that out. They gave Will Hardy a longer contract. Their wins have diminished each year in the 3 years since they traded John Collins this year. It was one of their better players. He had a nice year last year.
Right.
What exactly are they doing? They do have Laurie Markkinen, and I would think they're going to deal him if somebody will take him. He's
For
making a
sure.
lot of money, and he
Good
gets
player.
often. But
Mhm.
and they have Walker Kessler, who they couldn't reach an agreement with in salary, and he'll be restricted at the end of the year, restricted free agent. So they have a couple pieces, but it seems like everything you're doing is just not working out. Keontae George is another nice player they have, and they just took Ace Bailey in the draft, who is talented. I don't know, where his head is at times, but
Yeah.
he's a talented player. So there are pieces, but it's not getting much better. And
Yeah.
with that, the people I just mentioned as your best players, I don't think they can compete. And I think the best shot they have is get that lottery pick and
Yeah.
hope it's a high one. And hope, I don't know who's out there, but next year that high pick is another real good player because I don't see like them getting better to the point where, oh, look out in a couple of years. I can't even say that.
Yeah. Yeah, which is tough. They're good fans in Utah. I was in Utah once for work. I was actually texting you, and you said, "Hey, there's a game tonight. You should go." And I went, and I wouldn't have gone without your nudge. And I had a great time. It was a random Tuesday against the Orlando Magic. sold out crowd, enthusiastic crowd, just great fans in Utah. And I have that connection with them because I went to one game,
Well,
and I hope things work out well for them. Let's move to, no, we're not moving anywhere. We're staying in the West. This is a team, man, this is a team baffles me a little bit, and that's the Phoenix Suns. When I look at the makeup of the team this season, they strike me as a middle of the road team. I think they'll have some really good wins, some really bad losses. This isn't a team that's going anywhere. They seem directionless, rudderless. So what do you make of the Suns?
that's an interesting thing. For 2 years, Matt Ishbia, the owner, came in and decided that he's going to, and like most owners who've made a lot of money, they think they're going to be the smartest guy in the room. And
Right.
he decided that Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant would make them a champion. He went through Frank Vogel and then he went through Mike Budenholzer as coaches and fired both. He's still paying him, and it's a good life if you can get paid and stay home. But he hasn't done that. So now he's just reversed course. Got rid of Bradley Beal, bought him out, and then he traded Durant. He did get two players back. He got Dylan Brooks, who I think is the guy you don't want on your team. You don't want on the other team you hate playing against, but you want him with
Right.
you. He's
Yeah.
tough, he can
Yeah.
defend, and he's a clutch player.
Yep.
And it's a good deal. And he likes to win, so he plays hard. And they got Jalen Green. Jalen Green's an interesting case. He's averaged over 20 a game last year. The problem was in some big games, he didn't show up. He didn't play well. But with Devin Booker, you don't know. He's going to get more open looks through Booker. He's going to get more of a lot of things. And if he develops, then puts Phoenix in a little better situation. They do have Grayson Allen from the old group. They're not bad. They did get Mark Williams, who was traded to the Lakers. And then, see, we got the obligatory Laker mention. But
Again, from you, not from me.
let's be honest, you've been telling me Lakers. But they got Mark Williams, who could be a decent big if he's healthy. We don't know his health because of
Right.
all the things that have gone on. But you've got all those things. That makes them, Devin Booker, maybe a little better than average. But again, they're in the Western Division, the Western
Yeah.
Conference. And that's difficult, really, to see them get up there with the top 5 or 6 teams. Again, play in at best. That's not
Yeah.
that's a great situation. And if Jalen Green does emerge, they might be a little better than play in, but I really don't see that.
Yep, I agree. We mentioned a little bit ago that there's great fans in Utah. There are. Another place with great fans, and unfortunately not a good team, is Sacramento. The Kings have, to me, probably one of the coolest venue experiences when they do that Light the Beam at the end of a win. But this is a tortured team. When you wrote about them, you said, after saying some really good things about them, then you prefaced it all or ended it all by saying, but they are the Kings, which is rough. But it's a tortured team. What do you foresee for the Kings this season?
When I look at the Kings, I see a round peg in a square hole. They go out and they amass talent, and they do have some talent. They have DeMar DeRozan, who's getting old, but he can still score. Zach LaVine, who on given nights when he gets hot, he's really tough. These aren't great defenders, but these are players. Malik Monk, who's a pretty good guy off the bench, although they've been trying to trade him. Keegan Murray, a good young player who was hurt, but he can play. And naturally, Sabonis. And Sabonis, great rebounder, not a good defender. One thing a lot of these guys have in common, none of them are great defenders, except for
Yeah.
Keegan Murray. And they got Keon Ellis, who can defend a little bit. But what I do see, it's a bunch of parts that aren't bad. Unfortunately, they can only play with one basketball. And they do need a big because they need Sabonis is a better 4 than a 5. And if Sabonis can play the 4, suddenly you got something that's interesting. They've not gone out and gotten the big to do that. Now they have a new coach, Doug Christie, but they go have new coaches as often as I change my shirt. So that doesn't we'll see. We'll see what happens. What he's done is he's has an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator, I believe, like Larry Bird did 20 years ago, 25 years ago, which is an interesting thought. And so he's giving them some responsibility. But it's the Kings. So if it could go wrong, it's going to go wrong.
Yeah.
And if I were Christie, I hope he's renting because you never know with Vivek Renadad, who's the owner.
Yeah.
He goes through people left and right.
Yeah.
That's the situation. They have talent, but I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got to be a good team, right? Not a bunch of individuals. A team is going to beat good players that aren't a team every day of the week. We saw
Well,
that in 2016 with Detroit. That was a better team, or 2006. Sorry, that
if
was a
you're
better
putting
team
together a
overall.
team, you need to begin to think about where each guy can flourish, and you can't have two guys doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And the Kings seem to just say, "When a guy could score 25 points, let's get him." And that's great. But do they fit? And case in point would be DeRozan, Monk, and Levine can shoot. When he's on a roll, he's unstoppable. But he can't defend. And DeRozan's more of a 15-foot in player. Foul line area, he's really good. But Monk is a big shooter. You only got one basketball. How are you going to figure this one out? So it just, you got to think about and I'm going to think about the Spurs, when the old great Spurs, they had a guy who wasn't a shooter at all, but he was the fifth guy on the team and could defend, Bruce Bowen. When
Mhm.
you need to have players like that, because again, I would think Monk wants to get his 15 to 20 a game. DeRozan wants his 20 plus, and so does Levine and Sabonis. That's going to be difficult. It's going to
Yeah.
be difficult. And so it just doesn't work to me.
Yeah.
By the
More of
way,
the same. And
they did sign Dennis Schroeder. I wanted to mention that.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
Schroeder's now their point guard. He's going to be a Hall of Famer because of FIBA and what he's done in the World
Yeah.
Cup or whatever. But Schroeder's not the most lovable player by his teammates, and that's just one more interesting thing to throw into the mess.
Yeah. You gave me a nice softball for a segue here. Shooter is a point guard. He did sign with Sacramento. Here we've got the last team. We've got about 10 seconds before the shot clock goes off, but we're going to talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves. A good team, exciting team that desperately needs. There's the shot clock. I've got to change the noise here because that is not a good shot clock buzzer. But our time is up, and we're going to keep going. Timberwolves, good, exciting team, desperately needs a point guard. What do you see for Minnesota this year?
First of all, I think Anthony Edwards, the talk is over. Everybody's been saying he's the next Jordan and all. He's got to become
Right.
Jordan. And if he does, a lot of things can happen. They've got talent. And just to name Julius Randle, Naz Reid, these guys can play. Dante
Yeah.
DiVincenzo, I miss somebody, but they have some player. Rudy Gobert, of course. They've got players. So they could be good. And Chris Finches does a great job with this team. However, they need Edwards to move along. And then they also have a little problem at point guard. Michael
Yep.
Conley's getting old. He could play. He was a real good player in his day.
100%.
They drafted Rob Dillingham last year in the first round. He only played about 40 something or 50 games maybe last year, and sparse 10 minutes a game or so we average, I believe. So they were hoping he could become the guy. One problem is he's 6'1", which in the NBA today, defensively, that kind
Yeah.
of hurts you. But they've hoped that he would, but he really didn't show much last year. They're hoping that he does. The other thing they've talked about is making Dante DiVincenzo their point guard, which to me, he flourished with the Knicks when he was like a role player shooter who can just shoot the heck out of it. And now you're taking away that ability on the swing of the ball or different things where he's got, or the penetration and kick, where he's got the open three and he can hurt you. I don't know. I don't know if that's a great idea, but that tells you their need right now of
Right.
guard. So I think a couple things. If Dillingham comes along, or if they get something out of Conley, which I don't see naturally, but
Yeah.
then you got to hope that Edwards emerges, and by that next tier, and takes them to the finals, which I don't see. I don't see. The
Yeah.
one thing I will say for those people betting, this is a team, those guys play every night. When you talk about betting on wins for a season, they have a chance to amass whatever the betting number is. Where when you look at Golden State, they might have a number and people, oh, that Butler and so on are so good. The odds of Curry playing 75 games are slim. The odds
Yeah.
of Butler playing 70, 75 games are slim. So you're going to have a lot of nights where Golden State's not fully their full team. I think a lot of nights a team like Minnesota will have everybody.
Okay. All right. All right. A little nugget there for people that are interested in betting. An interesting tidbit I wasn't aware of, but I got to call out another show, another shot clock violation. It's what we do on the shot clock pod. A little overtime, but we had to talk about the Wolves, and I'm glad that we did. Anthony Edwards, only 24 years old. 24 years old. That's just blows my mind, and definitely time for him to take another step up. But that's it. You heard the shot clock go off. Again, we kept talking because it's what we do. But thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Make sure to read Steve's entire 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts article. We'll link it wherever you are watching or listening to this today. Of course, please subscribe, follow, comment. All that stuff matters. We appreciate all of it, and we're grateful for it. Join us again next week for more Random NBA Thoughts as we count down the start of the 2025-26 NBA season. We'll talk next week. Thanks, Steve.
Take care.